There are seasons in life when nothing dramatic seems to be happening, yet somehow everything feels different. You wake up in the morning and cannot quite explain the feeling inside you. Your routine looks the same room, the same streets, the same responsibilities, the same people, and yet something within you has changed. You begin to notice that certain conversations no longer excite you. Places that once felt comfortable suddenly feel unfamiliar. Things you used to chase no longer seem as important. You may even find yourself becoming quieter, not because you are angry, not because you have stopped caring, but because something inside you is beginning to understand that you cannot carry everything into the next chapter. And perhaps this is where you are right now. You may not have a dramatic sign. You may not have a perfect explanation. You may simply have a growing awareness that your life cannot remain exactly as it has been. Listen carefully. A new season does not always begin with an announcement. Sometimes it begins with a change in your appetite. You stop wanting what you once wanted. You stop explaining yourself to people who never listened. You stop chasing relationships that require you to constantly prove your value. You stop forcing opportunities that repeatedly leave you exhausted. You stop trying to convince someone to recognize what God has already placed inside you. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you begin to let go. That letting go can feel strange, because we often assume that if something is ending, there must be a dramatic reason. We expect arguments. We expect betrayal. We expect a final conversation. We expect someone to slam a door. But not every ending arrives like that. Some endings are gradual. Some are quiet. Some happen when you finally realize, I don't want this anymore. And there is something beautiful about reaching that realization without hatred. You do not have to hate your past to leave it behind. You do not have to call everything that ended bad. Some things were good. Some relationships were meaningful. Some opportunities were necessary. Some places helped you grow. Some seasons gave you lessons you could not have learned anywhere else. But something can be good and still be finished. That is one of the hardest truths to accept. We sometimes believe that if something was once blessed, it must remain forever. But seasons have beginnings. Seasons have purposes. And seasons have endings. Ecclesiastes reminds us that there is a time for many things under heaven. There is a time to begin. There is a time to build. There is a time to remain. And there is a time to move. The challenge is recognizing which season you are actually in. Because if you are in a season of transition but keep behaving as though you are still in the previous season, you will experience unnecessary frustration. You will keep knocking on doors that are no longer yours. You will keep trying to revive conversations that have naturally ended. You will keep asking for permission from people who cannot give you the future you are seeking. And you will wonder why you feel exhausted. Perhaps you are exhausted because you are trying to preserve something that has already served its purpose. Think about a tree in autumn. The tree does not hate its leaves. It does not become angry with them. It does not spend the entire winter trying to hold every leaf in place. It simply releases. The leaf falls. The tree remains. And when the right season comes, something new begins. That is an important picture for your life. You may lose something and still remain. You may leave something and still be whole. You may close a chapter and still have a future. You may experience rejection and still have purpose. You may walk away from something you desperately wanted and discover that your identity was never dependent on possessing it. So if you have been experiencing a strange sense of transition lately, do not immediately panic. Do not assume something terrible is coming. Instead, become attentive. Ask yourself, what is changing inside me? What am I no longer willing to tolerate? What have I been trying to hold together simply because I am afraid of what happens after I let go? What am I carrying that belongs to an older version of my life? These questions may be more valuable than searching for a supernatural explanation for every unusual feeling. Faith does not require you to interpret every coincidence. If you happen to notice the same number repeatedly, you can let that moment remind you to pause and pray. But you do not need a number to tell you whether a decision is wise. You do not need a coincidence to justify leaving an unhealthy situation. And you do not need an unusual dream to begin becoming more honest with yourself. God can work through ordinary wisdom. Sometimes guidance looks like scripture. Sometimes it looks like wise counsel. Sometimes it looks like recognizing patterns you previously ignored. Sometimes it looks like peace after careful consideration. And sometimes it looks like having the courage to admit, this is no longer healthy for me. If this message is helping you reflect on your own season, take a moment to subscribe to this channel. This channel is for people who want encouragement rooted in faith, while also learning how to approach life with wisdom, patience, and discernment. And if something in this message is already speaking to your heart, leave a comment. I am ready for the next season. Not because writing those words guarantees a miracle, but because sometimes you need to hear yourself acknowledge what you have been avoiding. You are allowed to move forward. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to become different. And you are allowed to release something without turning the ending into a war. Maybe the greatest change coming into your life is not something being added. Maybe it is something being removed, a burden, a habit, a fear, an unhealthy attachment, an outdated identity, a need for approval, a relationship that has run its course, a dream that no longer reflects who you are becoming. Whatever it is, do not rush to replace it. Give yourself permission to experience the space. Because sometimes the empty space is where you finally hear yourself think. Sometimes the silence is where you discover what matters. And sometimes the absence of something reveals how much energy you were spending trying to keep it alive. You do not need to know exactly what comes next. You only need enough courage to stop pretending that the past is still the future. The season is changing. And perhaps your first assignment is not to run towards something new. Perhaps your first assignment is simply to stop dragging something old behind you. One of the most painful experiences in personal growth is realizing that the person you used to be cannot come with you everywhere. There was a version of you that survived difficult circumstances. That version learned how to stay quiet, how to avoid conflict, how to make everyone happy, how to accept less, how to hide disappointment, how to keep going when nobody noticed. That version of you deserves compassion. Do not hate the person you were. That person did the best they could with what they understood at the time. But survival skills can become limitations when the environment changes. The habit that protected you in one season can imprison you in another. Maybe you learned never to trust anyone. That may have protected you from disappointment. But now it may also prevent you from experiencing healthy relationships. Maybe you learned to say yes to everyone. That may have helped you avoid conflict. But now you may be exhausted because you never say no. Maybe you learned to work constantly because you believed your worth depended on achievement. That may have helped you succeed. But now you cannot rest without feeling guilty. Maybe you became independent because nobody was there when you needed help. That independence may have carried you through difficult years. But now it may prevent you from accepting support. This is why transition can feel like grief. You're not only releasing circumstances, you are releasing patterns. And patterns can feel like identity. You begin asking, who am I if I am no longer the person who does this? Who am I if I stop chasing that person? Who am I if I no longer need everyone's approval? Who am I if I am not constantly fighting to prove myself? Those questions can be frightening, but they can also be liberating. The Christian journey is not simply about getting more things. It is also about becoming renewed. Romans 12 speaks about transformation through the renewing of the mind. That means the next chapter may require more than a change in circumstances. It may require a change in how you see yourself. You cannot build a peaceful future while constantly interpreting everything through the fears of your past. You cannot receive healthy love while believing you must earn affection. You cannot walk confidently into a new assignment while constantly asking people from your old life whether you're allowed to grow. And you cannot experience freedom while continuing to worship the approval of people who benefit from your insecurity. This is where some endings become necessary. Maybe you need to stop explaining yourself. Maybe you need to stop returning to conversations that always end the same way. Maybe you need to stop checking whether someone who hurt you has finally changed. Maybe you need to stop measuring your value according to how quickly someone responds to your message. Maybe you need to stop believing that rejection means God has rejected you. Human beings can reject you. Employers can reject you. Relationships can end. Friends can misunderstand you. Plans can fail. But none of those things automatically define your worth. Your identity must be deeper than circumstances. Consider the story of Peter. Peter failed publicly. He denied Jesus. He experienced shame. Yet failure was not the final definition of his life. There was restoration. There was growth. There was another assignment. That is important because some of you are not only grieving what you lost, you are grieving the person you thought you would become. Maybe you imagined a particular career, a particular relationship, a particular lifestyle, a particular timeline, and life did not follow your plan. You may be tempted to think, I wasted my time. But perhaps you learned. Perhaps you became stronger. Perhaps you became more compassionate. Perhaps you discovered what you never want to repeat. Perhaps the disappointment taught you how to recognize what matters. That does not mean every painful experience was sent by God. We should be careful with that language. Pain is real. Loss is real. Human choices have consequences. But faith gives us the ability to ask, what can I build from this? What can I learn? How can this experience shape me without defining me? That is where transformation begins. If this message is helping you understand your transition differently, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There will be more messages here about faith, personal growth, purpose, healing, and learning how to move forward without allowing fear to control your decisions. And I want you to leave one sentence in the comments. I released a version of me that I've outgrown. Read it slowly, not because you are rejecting yourself, because you are honoring your growth. There is a difference. You can honor who you were without remaining who you were. You can thank the old version of yourself and still let that version rest. You can say, you protected me when I needed protection. You helped me survive. But I do not need to live in survival mode forever. That is powerful because many people mistake familiarity for safety. But familiar does not always mean safe. You may be familiar with chaos. You may be familiar with disappointment. You may be familiar with being ignored. You may be familiar with overworking. You may be familiar with emotionally unavailable relationships. You may even be familiar with self-sabotage. When peace finally arrives, it may initially feel uncomfortable simply because it is unfamiliar. Do not run back to chaos simply because chaos is what you know. Give peace a chance to become familiar. Give healthy relationships a chance. Give yourself permission to rest. Give yourself permission to say no. Give yourself permission to make decisions without explaining every detail. And give yourself permission to become someone you have never been before. Perhaps your next season does not require more strength. Perhaps it requires less resistance, less proving, less chasing, less explaining, less performing, more listening, more patience, more honesty, more wisdom, more peace. And that may be the transformation you have been waiting for, not becoming louder, not becoming more impressive, but becoming more aligned with the person you believe God is calling you to become. There is a difference between perseverance and obsession. Perseverance says, this matters to me, so I will continue working responsibly. Obsession says, I must have this, no matter what it costs me. Perseverance can coexist with peace. Obsession consumes peace. And many people are confused the two. They believe that because they prayed for something, they must pursue it endlessly. They believe that if they stop trying, they're giving up on faith. But sometimes the most mature thing you can do is recognize that your effort is no longer producing healthy fruit. You have called. You have explained. You have apologized. You have tried again. You have waited. You have researched. You have done what you reasonably can. And now you are exhausted. Maybe it is time to stop. This does not mean you are quitting your purpose. It means you are refusing to worship a particular outcome. There's freedom in that. Imagine someone named Daniel. Daniel spent years trying to build a business with a particular partner. The partnership looked promising at first, but eventually Daniel noticed a pattern. Important information was hidden. Responsibilities were unclear. Promises were constantly changing. Whenever Daniel asked questions, he was told, "You worry too much. Just trust the process. Everyone else believes in us." But Daniel kept feeling increasingly uncomfortable. Eventually, he realized that the problem was not that he lacked faith. The problem was that he was ignoring information. So he stepped away. It hurt. He lost money. He lost a friendship. He had to start again. But months later, he realized something important. He had not lost his future. He had only lost one version of how he thought his future would happen. That distinction matters. Sometimes we are attached not to the blessing itself, but to the path we imagined would bring us there. We say, "This must happen this way. This person must be part of my future. This company must succeed. This relationship must work. This opportunity must become my breakthrough." But what if the goal is not wrong? What if the method is wrong? What if your destination requires a different road? This is why discernment matters. You need the ability to distinguish between "I should persevere" and "I am afraid to let go." Those two feelings can look remarkably similar. Ask yourself, am I continuing because this is genuinely fruitful? Or am I continuing because I am afraid that nothing better will come? That question can expose hidden fear. Another important question is, would I choose this again if I had not already invested so much? Sometimes we stay because of sunk costs. We think, I've already spent 5 years here. I have already invested so much money. I have already given this person so many chances. I have already sacrificed too much. But yesterday's investment does not automatically justify tomorrow's suffering. You can appreciate what something taught you and still leave. You can be grateful for a relationship and still recognize that it should end. You can be thankful for a job and still pursue another direction. You can honor your past without allowing it to own your future. Jesus repeatedly taught about the importance of fruit. What is this producing? What is growing from this? Is it producing love, truth, patience, integrity, wisdom? Or is it producing constant fear, deception, resentment, and exhaustion? That does not mean every difficult situation is wrong. Growth can be uncomfortable. Purpose can be difficult. Responsibility can be exhausting. But difficulty and destruction are not the same thing. A challenging season can still produce healthy fruit. An unhealthy situation can consume you without helping you grow. Learn the difference. And please understand this. Peace does not mean the absence of problems. You can have peace while facing a difficult decision. You can be nervous and still make a wise choice. You can grieve and still know that you are moving in the right direction. You can miss someone and still know you should not return. You can fear change and still embrace it. Discernment is not always a magical feeling. Sometimes it's a conclusion you reach after prayer, evidence, reflection, counsel, and time. That is why I encourage you to build a small circle of trustworthy people. People who are not afraid to tell you the truth. People who will not simply tell you what you want to hear. People who care about your character more than your excitement. When you're emotional, borrow someone else's perspective. When you are confused, seek clarity. When you are tempted to rush, slow down. And when you know something is wrong, do not let embarrassment force you to stay. If this message resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and comment. I will not sacrifice my peace to force an outcome. Let that become your reminder, because sometimes the thing you are asking God to give you is not the thing you need. Sometimes what you need is the courage to release your attachment to it. That is difficult, but freedom often begins where control ends. You cannot control another person's response. You cannot control the timing of every opportunity. You cannot control whether everyone understands your decision. You cannot control the past, but you can control your next honest step. And that is enough. A closed door can be painful, especially when you prayed for it to open. You prepared. You hoped. You imagined the future. And then suddenly it ended. The application was rejected. The relationship ended. The business deal disappeared. The opportunity went to someone else. The person you expected to stay chose to leave. And you are standing there wondering, God, what now? I want you to remember something. A closed door is information. It may not explain everything. It may not reveal the entire future, but it tells you that the path you expected to take is no longer available in the way you imagined, and that can be painful without being meaningless. The danger comes when we interpret one closed door as a verdict on our entire life. We say, I failed. I will never find someone else. I will never have another opportunity. My best years are over. This was my only chance. But how do you know? You do not. You are trying to make a permanent conclusion from a temporary event. Instead, ask, what is still possible? What can I learn? What remains in my hands? What is the next responsible step? That shift changes everything. The Bible contains many stories of people whose lives did not follow a straight line. Joseph's path included betrayal, slavery, false accusations, and imprisonment before leadership. David experienced years of uncertainty before becoming king. Moses spent years in the wilderness. Ruth experienced profound loss before entering a new chapter. Paul's ministry involved hardship and opposition. These stories do not teach that every setback automatically means promotion is coming. They teach something deeper. A difficult chapter does not tell you the entire story. You may be in a chapter, not the conclusion. And if you are in a chapter you do not understand, you do not need to force an ending. Let the story develop. Maybe you are currently in a season of rebuilding. Then rebuild. Maybe you are in a season of learning. Then learn. Maybe you are in a season of healing. Then heal. Maybe you are in a season where you need to simplify. Then simplify. Do not constantly compare your timeline with someone else's. You see someone's announcement. You do not see their entire journey. You see their success. You do not see their private struggles. You see the wedding. You do not see the conversations that preceded it. You see the new business. You do not see the years of uncertainty. Comparison can make your own season feel like failure when it is simply different. Your journey is not late because someone else arrived somewhere before you. And if you have been waiting for something for a long time, be careful about becoming desperate. Desperation makes bad opportunities look attractive. It makes unhealthy relationships look like rescue. It makes shortcuts look like destiny. It makes manipulation look like favor. When you desperately want a door to open, you may stop asking whether you should walk through it. That is why patience is protective. Sometimes waiting is not punishment. Sometimes waiting gives you time to become capable of handling what you are asking for. Imagine receiving a large responsibility before developing the wisdom to manage it. The blessing could become a burden. Imagine entering a relationship before learning how to communicate. The relationship may expose wounds you have not addressed. Imagine receiving financial success before learning discipline. Money may amplify your problems instead of solving them. Preparation matters. So instead of asking only, when will my breakthrough arrive? Ask, who do I need to become before it arrives? What skills do you need? What habits? What boundaries? What knowledge? What emotional maturity? What discipline? What wisdom? That is a much more powerful question. And if you are currently experiencing an ending, allow yourself to grieve. You do not have to pretend that everything is wonderful. Christian faith does not require emotional dishonesty. Jesus wept. Grief is not proof that you lack faith. You can cry and still trust. You can be disappointed and still believe. You can feel lost and still continue. You can say, I don't understand this, and still say, I will keep walking. That is not weakness. That is honest faith. So if you are standing in front of a closed door today, do not spend the rest of your life staring at it. Turn around. Look at what remains. Look at what you have learned. Look at the people who still love you. Look at the skills you have developed. Look at the opportunities you have not yet considered. Look at the person you have become. There is still life beyond that door. There is still purpose. There is still work to do. There is still love to give. There are still lessons to learn. There are still possibilities you cannot see yet. And if this message is encouraging you, subscribe to the channel and stay with us for future messages. Then share this video with someone who may be struggling with an ending. Tell them, one closed door does not define your entire future. That sentence might be exactly what they need today. Now I want to finish this message differently, not with a prediction, not with a promise that a specific miracle will happen on a specific date, not with a claim that a particular number guarantees that God is speaking. Instead, I want to give you something practical, a declaration, a decision, a commitment about how you will move forward. If you are able, sit somewhere quiet, take a slow breath, put your phone down for a moment, and say these words slowly. Lord, I do not know everything that tomorrow will bring. I cannot see the entire road ahead. There are things I understand. There are things I do not understand. There are doors I hope will remain open. There are doors I wish had never closed. There are people I miss. There are opportunities one still think about. There are parts of my past that I am still learning how to release. But today, I choose not to live in fear. I choose wisdom. I choose patience. I choose truth. I choose integrity. I choose to listen before I react. I choose to think before I commit. I choose to ask questions before I trust promises. I choose to seek wise counsel when I am uncertain. I choose to pray before making decisions that can change my life. I release my need to control every outcome. I release my obsession with timelines. I release the belief that my life must happen exactly according to my plan. I release the need to compare my journey with someone else's. I release relationships that require me to abandon my values. I release habits that keep me trapped in the past. I release the version of myself that believes I must earn my worth. And I ask you to help me become the person I am capable of becoming. Give me courage to leave when leaving is necessary. Give me patience when waiting is wise. Give me humility to apologize when I am wrong. Give me strength to establish boundaries when boundaries are needed. Give me wisdom to recognize manipulation. Give me compassion without making me naive. Give me faith without making me careless. Help me understand that trusting you does not mean ignoring reality. Help me understand that prayer and wisdom belong together. When I feel afraid, remind me to breathe. When I feel pressured, remind me that I can pause. When I feel rejected, remind me that rejection is not the same as worthlessness. When I experience an ending, remind me that an ending is not automatically a failure. When something new appears, help me examine it carefully instead of assuming it must be my answer. And when I cannot see what comes next, help me take the next wise step. I do not need to know the whole future today. I only need courage for today. I am willing to grow. I am willing to learn. I am willing to release. I am willing to begin again. Amen. Now take another breath and listen carefully. Your next chapter does not need to begin with fireworks. It may begin with a decision, a quiet decision. The decision to stop returning to what constantly hurts you. The decision to stop accepting less than you know is healthy. The decision to stop chasing validation. The decision to stop saying yes when you mean no. The decision to stop living according to someone else's expectations. The decision to take care of yourself. The decision to seek help. The decision to forgive without reopening a door that needs to remain closed. The decision to trust slowly. The decision to build again. That is how transformation often begins. Not dramatically, but intentionally. So when tomorrow comes, do not spend the entire day searching for a supernatural signal. Live wisely. Pay attention to reality. If an opportunity appears, examine it. If someone makes you a promise, verify it. If you receive an offer, read the terms. If someone pressures you, pause. If you feel confused, ask questions. If you are uncertain, seek counsel. If something violates your values, have the courage to walk away. And if something genuinely good appears, you do not have to be afraid of it simply because you are cautious. Discernment is not suspicion of everything. Discernment is the ability to distinguish good from harmful, wise from reckless, healthy from unhealthy, truth from manipulation, faith from fear. And perhaps this is the real meaning of a new season. Not that everything suddenly becomes easy, but that you become wiser about what you allow into your life. You become more intentional, more grounded, more patient, more courageous. You stop needing every door to open. You stop needing every person to stay. You stop needing every plan to work. You stop believing that one disappointment can destroy your future. You learn to say, "This hurts, but I will continue. This ended, but I am still here. I lost something, but I did not lose myself. I do not understand this chapter, but I will not surrender my entire story to one difficult page." That is strength. And if you have been watching this entire message, thank you for staying until the end. If this channel has encouraged you, subscribe now and turn on the notification bell so you can join us for future messages.